Hey everybody, Jay Schlansky here from the Fifth Trooper Network. I just want to take a moment to thank you for checking out this show. Did you know that over at thefifthtrooper.com we have tons of other content, including blogs, other podcasts, all kinds of stuff. In addition, if you want access to exclusive content, you can join us on patreon.com/thefifthtrooper and join at any level and you'll get access to exclusive blog articles, access to our private Discord, and much more. So please check us out, and thank you so much for all your support.
Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Mike.
Hey,
What's going on?
not much. I'm gonna go with the standard hey, it's Monday intro, and yes, I know you might be listening to this on a Friday, but that's
Yeah. We apologize for the release delay. Hopefully that will improve over time.
and even if it doesn't,
It is what it is. It's
yeah,
fine.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Frankly, we're not living in like a, so I feel like sometimes there's situations where, we record on a Monday and there's like a massive news drop on a Tuesday, and then we're like, oh no, our podcast is out of date. Uh, I don't think that's going to happen this week. If it does, I apologize, but that hasn't been happening lately. So
I don't think that. I mean, something radical would have to happen for that to be the case. I think at this juncture. So
yeah, I think we're all tapped out on massive news drops.
Marked safe
in recent history anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do have some news though, which we're going to talk about today.
We do.
That is what's up on the screen. Atomic Mass Games released information about the 25-26 Grand Tournament season.
Which is crazy because the 24-25 season's not even over yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that they're doing this now. So people actually had, previously it was like, okay, you have a month to get your applications in, and oh, by the way, you need to basically have a space booked already. This is much better for organizers that are looking to actually like plan a new event around these requirements versus just kind of being like, well, I have this existing event that already had a Legion tournament at it. Let's see if I can make it a grand tournament,
Yeah.
So
I do feel like last time it was like the deadline is 3 weeks from now, and we started taking registrations like last week, but didn't tell you.
Right. Yeah. It definitely felt a little late, but this is early, which is great.
Yes, it sounds like they're not even taking applications until November, it sounds like.
Yeah, so if you're looking to, of course, if you already have an event, you can look to potentially make that event more competitive for GT application reasons, which, by the way, they put in here application advice, which they also did not have last time, and they put in some requirements that will make your application more competitive. So take a look at that if you're a TO and you're looking to get a GT. The big things here are basically, of course, your application needs to be complete and detailed. That should go without saying, but
you need to actually submit a resume. Good job.
Right. Yeah.
You've done the minimum work required.
Right. Can support all 3 game lines, so that's a big one. They're looking for conventions or tournaments that can support. So that would be MCP, Shatterpoint, and Legion. If they're taking place at a convention or other multi-day event, that also helps. If they can support 64 or more players per game line, and then a previous track record of good tournaments that actively support the community. So, and they also said that they're trying to spread it out geographically, which is a little bit of a like, if you see a tournament in a random spot that doesn't seem to make sense, and there's no other tournaments near it, maybe that's why.
Yeah.
I know some people are like, why is there a tournament GT in Alaska? That could be an explanation for that. But anyway, all that stuff makes sense as to what would make a more competitive application. But now it's laid out here for TOs to actually look at and factor into their planning. So I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think more expectations are good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
More transparency is good, I guess.
Yeah.
That's what I should say.
Yeah. They also lay out the base requirements that you need to even be considered, which is a little further up, and that's things like you have to be able to support at least 32 players. It has to be open to the public. A lot of these things are event must be held in person at a legitimate public venue and not in somebody's basement, I guess. A lot of these things are things that should be obvious, but they have to write them out because these are basic requirements. So some of these like events must have one dedicated judge per 16 players. That one seems challenging. That's a lot of judges, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It certainly is more judges, I think, per 16 players than we're used to.
yeah, it's not like insurmountable, but
No.
I mean, Worlds would have had to have uh what, like 16 judges?
Um, yeah, I mean, I
I'm trying to do
guess.
quick math in my head here.
No, because we all didn't play on the same day, right? That didn't happen.
Yeah, we did. Worlds wasn't heats.
But there was a weird cut system, wasn't there?
Sure, but the first day had like 250
Oh,
players.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, that's a lot of judges.
yeah.
Anyway, it is what it is. So judges can't play in the event. That should go without saying for a GT. You got to provide terrain, uh, stuff like that. So if you're interested in applying for a GT, you should definitely look at this. There's also a very interesting nugget buried kind of at the end here under
Yeah.
prize support. So a lot of this stuff here is kind of what we're used to, foil cards, acrylic tokens, dice, etc. But under winner, uh, first of all, I'm curious what acrylic game dashboard is. I wonder if that's like an acrylic turn zero thing. If so, that would be
I
pretty
I think
awesome.
I think that's very likely based on the stuff that they had at Worlds this year.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I'd be all about that. But one buy at Adepticon's 2026 Open Worlds if the grand tournament happens on or before February 28th, 2026.
Yep.
This is great. They're actually reestablishing a link between, the tournament circuit and the world championships, which I think is
Turns
awesome.
out things like invites were actually good things, and they figured that out. So I
Yeah.
am a little bit curious based on the wording of these prizes, what happens if you happen to be a grand tournament winner multiple times in a season?
Yeah, do you get more than one buy?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question.
It doesn't say you don't.
I think it's implied that it would be a first round buy and you don't get more than one, but
I
that's not what
understand,
this
but
actually
that is
says.
not what it says.
Yeah. Um,
Uh,
no, I think this is great. I mean, it's somewhere between, it's not quite an invite, right? Because they said they wanted Worlds to be open, but it still provides a reward that links the tournament circuit, like in a feeder to style fashion up to Worlds, which I think is great because it gives people something to play for.
yeah, I definitely I wish that they would take this one step farther. I wish that they would still hand out buys to like local store tournaments.
Yeah.
And if that means like GT winners get two buys or something, like I think
Or like they just automatically make the first day cut if you're a
yes,
GT
or
winner. Yeah.
right, exactly. Like they don't have to play day one or something. I think that
Right.
would be fine. I think I would love to see it a step further. This kind of takes the invite system and makes it so that it's for the most part still as enticing to make people go to these bigger events, but there's no cost associated with handing out buys.
Right.
It's free for AMG to be like, yeah, you don't have to play around,
Yeah, exactly.
as opposed to like paying for people's hotel rooms, stuff like that. So,
Right.
um,
Yeah, this seems like a good meet in the middle, between the old system and the, giving nothing out at GTs that's relevant for Worlds. So I think it's great. I'm very happy to see this.
this is I feel like we're in the like we've taking a couple steps back. Now we're taking a step forward. Great.
Yep.
I think sometimes you got to take one step back to two steps forward. So I think we're on the path.
Yeah, and it's clear to me from this that they are at least like monitoring tournament attendance, because attendance for like the convention tournaments, um, particularly in cases where people historically traveled for tournaments, has been down. And hopefully Longshanks has information on like where players come from, just kind of right there in the standings with the player flags and stuff. So you can sort of see, I mean, we're going to look at the London GT here in a minute, but there are only, I think I was scrolling through it, there's 30 players at this tournament, and only three of those players, sorry, two of those players are from outside the UK.
And that's assuming that those players are actually from outside the UK. They could be just like flying those flags. It's like, this is where I'm originally from, and I
Sure,
and I
right.
live here now, sort of thing.
Yeah, London is a very cosmopolitan place. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, at best, there are two players that travel to London GT, where historically the UK tournaments and sort of the European tournament scene in general has been like a big travel scene where groups from, Germany, Poland, etc., kind of just go around to like all the tournaments, and there really hasn't been any of this year, and that's affected the attendance numbers. So hopefully this buy system will, you know, give those German players and whoever else a reason to like travel non-locally to go to tournaments. And
Yep.
we'll see if it's enough. It's at least something. So
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we'll see. I definitely, again, step in the right direction. We'll see if it's enough. I suspect they're going to need to take this just one more step farther.
probably, but it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
So okay. Speaking of London GT, should we talk about it?
Yeah, let's do it. We just
So
want the top 8. How do you want to do this?
yeah, let's just hit the top 8. I think so. Real quick, I think Lila's list is the most interesting, and of course, Lila's a great player. So why don't we talk about that last, and let's run quickly
Oh,
through because
okay.
I think that's going to feed into our main topic for today.
Sure. I
Uh,
I also can't block out list names, so I apologize to the folks at home because that one wasn't exactly family friendly.
yeah, there's an NS and a not safe for work caveat to one or two of these list names. So, um, if for some reason your kid is like watching the YouTube video with you and they can read, maybe just fast forward 15 seconds when we bring some of these up, but
Yeah.
whatever. Or just listen to it in podcast form, because we're not going to actually read those out.
No, we're not.
Um, but anyway, yeah. So broad brush here. There were 4 separatist lists in the top 8, which is great to see. I actually just wrote an article that was out today, which at least on the recording day is Monday. Again, may not be the day that you're listening to this, but about all the changes that droids got in 2.6. So 3 of these were actually experimental droids lists. So experimental droids still good.
Man, who would
Just
thunk it?
yeah, just in a different way. I think 2 of them were
They
double
all
snail.
persuaders. Yeah.
One of them was a single snail, and then like 3 droidicas. But they all had kind of that same base of 2B1s, 2B2s, and then fill in with snails and or droidicas.
I mean, that experimental droid snail is real good, and
It is.
um, yeah, kill stuff good.
Yeah, I mean it's really fueled by that double exemplar plus defense protocols. Turns out when you have 2 relatively inexpensive tanks with ginormous dice pools and 2 sources of exemplar, it's pretty good.
Yep.
I
Yes,
mean,
it is.
it's like the old Padme saber tank build, except you can just run 2 of each of those things instead of one.
Right. Well, instead of taking like standby shenanigans, you just take a second tank
Right, and a second exemplar source.
and a second exemplar source. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's real good. There's also 3 Republic lists in here. 2 of them are Anakin. One of them is Yoda Bad Batch, I believe. No surprise to see those succeeding. And then Dave Grant was running basically Luke. That would be Jedi Luke and Han, and Bad Batch.
Yeah.
Plus some other random, as rebelists tend to be, other random rebel stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think and notably light on the Rebel core, as is pretty much every Rebel list ever.
Yep.
The only core units he's focused on are pikes.
Yeah, which are not actually rebel units.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's kind of sad that, as a rebel player, obviously rebel troopers got what I think a lot of people perceived as pretty massive buffs. And it's still just with the way the new edition plays, it's just not enough.
so here's the thing. I think I don't want to like dovetail into the Rebel discussion again, but I do think that
Yeah.
the agile buff to Rebel troopers is so completely inconsequential at in like a competitive format. Like I can see it mattering when you're playing like maybe not as competitive games, but in competitive games on turn one, the fight is not about shooting. The fight is about, or it's about not getting shot at all, right? Like, so the dodge tokens don't actually matter on turn one. And so these dodge tokens you're accumulating on your units, um, you don't actually get to use them because they're not. If you put them in a place where they could get shot, they would be dying. Um, and and then by the time turn two rolls around, the dodge tokens are gone. Like maybe you have one for vigilance. You're muted, by the way.
Oh yeah, I was saying literally that. Maybe you have one for vigilance, but
It-
one dodge token is like spitting into the wind, basically. So
Well, and then you're like, okay, like, so what am I supposed to use? Am I supposed to use agile to like try and like sneakily take a point with a rebel trooper unit? Like, so you absorb like one shot, like taking three off the top, and then you're still rolling like two or three saves on your rebel troopers, and then you're left with one dodge token. Like,
and like two models left anyway.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like this is not a recipe for success. So I just is that to say that like you're never gonna sneak a point with rebel troopers? No, of course you're gonna grab one every now and then. But I just is a mass unit strategy. It's just not tenable. They're gonna be able to shoot a unit that hasn't activated yet
Right.
at some juncture. And so
Yeah, which has always been sort of the inherent trouble with dodge tokens
yeah.
is, you're unless you have like an equal number of dodge tokens on every single eligible unit, which is pretty difficult to achieve, or unless you have token sharing, then your opponent has some agency over whether you can get to spend them at all simply through target priority.
Well, and this has been the issue from day one, and that like this is why pikes are better than rebel troopers, right? Like they're effectively about the same cost. They're like pretty close. If you like assuming you're like changing the DLT out for like the disruptor rifle.
Yeah.
Like the pools are very similar. Um, but defensively, that pike unit gets the dodge token for free.
Yeah, without having to do any setup or anything. So,
Yeah. Um,
and they get more durable as they get shot because of danger sense.
Yes. I mean, obviously the danger sense conversation changes it a little bit, but I do think that the dodge token is the big piece.
Yeah.
Um,
And they natively outmaneuver. That's not as relevant anymore because of,
no.
new cover rules.
Because dice
But
pools are absurd.
well, it's not just because dice pools are absurd. It's because you pretty much always have hits to cancel now.
Yes.
Whereas previously, maybe you didn't. I've noticed that too. Like I've run Protector a couple times on various Guardian units, and I've just literally never used it.
You don't need it. I mean, I shouldn't say you don't need it, but
There's
unless
always
you
hits
have
to cancel.
multiple layers of defensive tech, like canceling crits matters a lot less.
Yep. Um. So yeah, Rebel Troopers still just kind of bad. Sorry,
That
they're less
keyword
bad.
almost might as well not be there. Like I just like for it
It
being
it
like
definitely helps to be there, but it's not good enough. That's
sure.
not. Yeah.
Yes. I mean it certainly doesn't hurt to have it, I guess, but
Yeah.
it is still very close to a do nothing.
Yeah. They need something that increases their mobility, I think. That would give them like more of a unique niche among core units. I don't know. I think that'd be more interesting than just okay, I guess they get dodge tokens for free, but they still die really fast. So like if they could if they had a keyword where it was like reverse steady, like make a move action after you make an attack, then they could actually do like some peekaboo stuff and things like that. But
Yeah. I mean, at that point, why not just give them steady, you know?
because steady allows you to double move and then shoot, which extends your engagement range, but this would be more specifically for like, fire and fade type stuff, which feels more thematic to me
Sure,
for rebels.
I suppose. I mean, I guess like, yeah. Um,
I don't know. I mean, yeah, steady would be simpler and it would certainly be stronger, but
sure. Yeah, I don't know. That's definitely like at that point, you're playing a whole other faction, but maybe that's what they need. I don't
maybe, yeah, because
know.
we've been talking for a long time about how the only good things in rebels are the heroes, and whenever we look like at a rebel list, it's like, okay, here are the characters they're taking, and then it's a bunch of rebel junk,
Yeah.
basically. So, you know,
I I
anyway,
I think I would like to see them lean into like what if rebel units just like all rebel infantry just like had to infiltrate. You know.
that'd be
but but
something.
but maybe you make it so that they don't have to deploy them on turn one.
Like infiltrate, but you don't have to deploy them on turn one.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be super strong. I feel like
It
even just
would, it
mass
would,
infiltrate would be super strong.
yeah. I mean, you would need to limit it farther than that, but I like the idea of like the rebels are here, but we don't know where they are.
Yeah,
You know, like that, and I feel like the new deployment system is like,
the opposite of that.
well, I mean, I think it's actually you could very richly build a system like a faction that does that in a way like if all of a sudden your rebel units aren't on the table until turn two, agile on your rebel troopers might actually matter because you're like bum rushing objectives out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I don't know. It could be. I'm not saying I don't know. I don't know how to balance that. I've got no idea, but I do think that that would go. It'd be feel really cool and really thematic.
yeah. I've always felt they could benefit from kind of an extended version of like how the Bane tokens work.
Yes, something similar to that. You know,
Yeah,
I'm just thinking like if you've got like 10 units with it, that could get very complicated token wise.
it'd have to be something like, you know, you can put out whatever 3 tokens, and um, whenever some conditions are met, you can either deploy a unit meeting the requirements to one of those tokens, or you can move like redeploy a unit that meets those requirements to one of those tokens. So
Yeah, you could like
something
have
like
like
that.
put rebels in reserve or something, and then
Yeah,
like, deploy them using those tokens later on. Yeah, I think that would be really cool.
yeah.
Um,
Anyway, homebrew.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
let's talk about Lila's list.
yeah.
Um, so I think there's there's a couple things at play here. The first is that Lila is a very good player, certainly one of the best players in the United Kingdom. So, um, there's a few players in the UK, Lila, Dave Grant, Ali, who was TOing this event, uh, where like whatever they play is going to do fine, basically, because skill still counts for a lot in Legion. And this is definitely a list where you look at it and you're like, man, I would not be brave enough to try that. Um, so it's basically Grievous, Dooku, Ventress, and Maul, and then it has 5B1s, 4 of which have med droids and an E5S, and then Sith probes, and that's the
E5S is
list.
the range four gun, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Still the best one.
Yeah, still the best one. I think you could make a case now potentially for the rad cannon with how close everything is, but the chances of your B1 surviving to get that on target are pretty low, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
So
the chances that you actually like wound something with it are much higher, but
yes, because you're not losing shots to cover, which is helpful. And I was using the rad cannons in EXD before the new version, and I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised by how decent they were. especially against things like commandos, because it totally gets around Katarn.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. The point here is this is a lot of lightsabers
It is a lot of
and a
lightsabers.
lot of bursts of speed.
It is, yes. I think this list is just focused around three characters with high mobility, with that have a bunch of med droids. Um,
I noticed you said 3 and not 4.
I don't think the fourth character is very good, despite him being cheaper. And that being General Grievous. He's like still fine, you know.
Yeah, I gave the new updated droid slash separatist units like grades in that article I wrote today,
Yeah.
and I think I gave Grievous a C. I mean, he's definitely like more playable than he was,
Yeah,
but
because cheaper, right? I mean,
he's substantially cheaper. You got a little bit of an offensive upgrade by putting critical one on the trophy lightsabers. Obviously, Supreme Commander is a great card for B2 specifically. And then he's got Entourage uh, Magnus to get an extra face up out there, which is great. But, you know, at least in Lila's list here, she's not taking advantage of Supreme Commander because she doesn't even have it, and there's no real good targets for it. She's not taking advantage of the free order because she doesn't have any Magnas. So it's basically like just an extra lightsaber. And personally, I've found Grievous in that context to be really still very underwhelming. He still gets suppressed super easily.
yeah, and I also think this has come up in basically every game I've played against Grievous. The fact that he cannot like swing his lightsaber and shoot his pistol out of melee
Yeah.
anymore is actually like kind of a stealth nerf. Like
Yeah, he doesn't have Arsenal anymore.
there's no arsenal, so you can't like if you're stuck in melee with like one or two guys, you can't make the most of that big pool, you know?
Right,
Uh,
you're throwing 8 dice at one guy instead of 4 dice at that one guy and then 4 dice at something else, which you used to
yeah.
be able to do, and it helped a little bit with the fact that he was effectively a force user without force push, right?
Yes. Yes. And now that he doesn't have that, like you can target him pretty well, you know?
Yeah, and sure, trained in your Jedi arts has disengage on it, but it's still not a great card. The damage from it is not good. I noticed Lila didn't even take it.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I don't think it's good enough, really. And
yeah,
in a world where you're living, particularly in a list like this, where you're living in a world where there's like five different one pips you want to play.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah, it just doesn't compete with the other droid one pips. If General Grievous is not like your only character, and if he's your only character, yeah. What are you doing? You know?
Yeah. Um,
So yeah, I think this list would probably be better without Grievous in it. You know, Lila can correct us if her experience has been different, but it doesn't feel like he's bringing even really his best tools to this particular thing. And I think this is probably succeeding in spite of Grievous and not because of him.
yeah, I mean, honestly, at first glance, I'd probably just cut Grievous out of this and put Force Push on the other three characters and start there.
Yeah.
There's not a Force Push in this list, which I definitely think if you're playing a list like this, you should probably I would like to see a one of it at a baseline, just because you've got so many expensive characters that just having one force push to like manipulate the situation in a
Yeah.
way, like if you lose like one of these things, all of a sudden your battle plan might just go to pieces very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, she does have choke on Dooku, which helps a little bit because that can kind of solve the one engaged with one dude problem. But if you've got 3 different units that need to not be engaged with one dude, then that could be sort of a problem. But force pushes give you so much more flexibility too about who's engaged where.
Well, and that's the thing that I would be more concerned with, like, um, a lot of times your opponent will disengage from you and then try and shoot you. And when you have four force users, you can't actually hold them all until last to make sure that if they disengage with you, you can safely re-engage them. But if you have a force push on the table, that gets a lot harder to do effectively.
Yeah, although notably the fact that you can disengage it and then move away.
Yeah, but if you're like contesting a point
Yeah,
with a
you're not going to be able to
character,
do that. Right.
like they either are like not scoring the point anymore, and that's fine, or they're scoring the point and probably you can force push them back into whatever character they have disengaged from, or there's another unit that you can force push into said force user.
Right.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, I think that this type of list is probably better than people think.
it's definitely better than people think. I've played against a similar version, I guess, two or three times now. And if you don't like put a character down turn one or two, turn two, you're gonna be feeling some pain, particularly on maps that you can like hide on. Like Asajj has jump too.
Yeah.
You know, like she gets to go where she wants.
Yep.
Um, so and this version has four medical droids in it, which actually I think allows you to, you know, you can take some hits early on and be feeling a lot better about it.
Yep. Totally. All right. Should we parlay this into our main topic for
Yeah, let's
today?
do it. We're all about force users today. So we're gonna do a force user tier list.
Yep. People on the Discord were asking us about Force users and what we think of Force users in the new game. So we're gonna rank them all. I
Yeah.
know that obviously many of these have not had. I think we're kind of assuming that every unit is going to get a new card. Um, so obviously a lot of these units have not had that yet, but some of them are great anyway. Some of them are feeling a little like they need it.
I'm not sure that every unit is getting a new card. I think I mean in the sense that like yes, all of them will be updated to the new template,
Yeah,
but I'm not sure that every unit is gonna change.
right. And I noted this too in the Separatist article. B1s did not change, but they did get a new card, which tells me two things. A, you're right that every unit's going to get a new card at least. And B, B1s are not getting any buffs.
Right. Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
they already
And
got what they got, which is nothing.
yes,
So,
and I think there's a few units on this list like Ahsoka and the Inquisitors that are like new enough that I think they were probably considering the rebalance when those cards got released, or at least I hope they were. Um, so I would kind of expect them not to change if and if they do, not by much.
yeah.
Um, so
All right. Should we just start here and go
yeah,
across
yeah.
the
The
row
first thing
here?
is, do we need to change our categories? Does S through D, like, does that work for you? Do you want to change like D into like don't take ever and into super awesome, or like
I think this is fine. This is kind of the traditional way that stuff is ranked in tier lists.
yeah.
I think I've done in my tier lists on articles, I've done it a little bit more nuanced, but for purposes of hot taking on a podcast, I think this is fine.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. All right. Well,
People
let's
know what we mean when we say S, A, B, C, D.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
S is the highest, by the way, in
Yes.
case you're not familiar with this particular system. So,
All right, cool. So why don't we go ahead and we'll just go across the deal
yeah,
here. We'll start off with Separatist Maul coming in at 130 points now. And I don't think he's had any erratas or anything
no.
like that.
I think the biggest change for him with the new rules is the cover changes make his saber throw like really good again. And
Yeah.
it's four red dice.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, it was four red dice before.
Right. But it was four red dice with good ways to negate cover via center to center. And then it was four red dice with extreme difficulty negating cover to cover. And now it is still four red dice, but cover matters a lot less. So you're kind of back to the position where you're often just banking all of that paint and saying, roll 4, pierce 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is closer to like before his saber throw is 2 pierce 2 after cover, and now it's probably 3 pierce 2 after cover, right?
Right,
Realistically, unless you
right.
get an open shot, which at range 2 is like pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think saber throw is decent. I mean, let's start the conversation. I think there's a test that every force user has to pass in order to um or they have to make the threshold here to make it out of B tier at least. And is can they operate without force push? And if not, can you actually take force push on the character in a way that doesn't sabotage the rest of your list? Um,
Yeah, and I think the sort of shorthand for that is, do they have Master the Force or not?
yes, although I would argue that Maul with Juyo is like
Pretty close to that.
pretty. Obviously, it's not Master of the Force, but it is as close as you can get without having it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Also relevant to the Juyo conversation, one of the previous best uses of Juyo was to claim objectives.
yes.
Maul was exceptional at recover. He was very good at bombing run as, one of the few units that could like double move and kind of defuse a bomb. He was great at VAPs for the same reason, one of the few units that could double move and tap a VAP. None of those are things anymore.
Uh, and
So
and also as far as Juyo nerfs go, you can no longer like double move, force push something into you and stand by and and re-engage that unit. um,
right, because you would move into them and then they would just withdraw again.
yes, because you can withdraw multiple times.
Right.
That's fair. And so there's like Maul's had some significant nerfs in that capacity. That was like one of the tricks that only he could do, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that is no longer on the table because of how withdrawing works. So
Yeah. I I'd probably put him still in like B tier
yeah, I mean,
because
I definitely think the like burst of speed saber throw version of Maul is takeable.
yeah.
I don't think it's like particularly anything sweet to write home about, like 4 red dice with Pierce on it. I think we've all gotten used to that pool. I don't know about you, but I certainly have.
Yeah.
Uh and yeah, I think B is fair for Separatist Maul.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about his brother, Shadow Collective Maul.
Y-
Um,
yeah. I feel like Shadow Collective Mall suffers from a lot of the same stuff that we just talked about without really benefiting from.
so yeah, I mean he's 20 points more expensive.
Yeah.
He picks up his extra 3 command cards,
Yeah, which is good.
which is decent. In a world where things are more lethal, are you taking the Dark Saber on Separatist or on Shadow Collective Mall now?
Maybe.
Particularly if you're not taking Force Push, means you're probably taking separate a Saber Throw on this mall too.
Yeah, I think the answer probably is no,
Yeah.
which is a huge, I mean, that was a huge source of his previous value, but it feels like kind of a liability now.
Yeah.
Also, the 6 card hand is less useful than it used to be.
100%
Uh,
because you're only playing 5 of them.
you're only playing 5 of them, and probably 2 to 3 of those matter substantially more than the other two,
Yeah.
as far as a chance to affect the game state is concerned. So yeah, I, I think I would put Shadow Collective Mall in C personally.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean I definitely think Shadow Collective Mall is like at 190 points before other upgrades with Force Push. Like you can't take Force Push on him. He doesn't have Master of the Force.
Yeah,
And 150 points is like it's too much for this profile.
Yeah.
It's just not good enough. All right. Let's float over to Operative Luke because I'm not sure this is the order I uploaded them all in, but maybe it is. I don't know. But he's the next on the list. Operative Luke clocking in at 175 points. Pretty much no other changes.
Yeah, he's the same. I mean, one caveat with all these, I guess, is for those that have deflect, it's always on now.
Yes, that is very fair. I I think Operative Luke specifically suffers a ton from the fact that like you need to have like one or two command cards you play on turn 2 and turn 3 need to be like very uh powerful.
Yep.
And I feel like Luke was always a character who like all of his cards were good, but they didn't do anything insane.
Besides Son of Skywalker, depending on how you used it, it's definitely not as good as Anakin's card because you usually have to just attack the same target twice,
Yes.
which often means you're just overkilling one target.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I Am a Jedi clearly has some pretty crazy uses now.
It
Uh,
does.
but other than that, yeah, all of his cards are basically like above average setup cards.
I get a
They
dodge token.
right, they hand out free dodges.
Which are way less important now that deflect is always on.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think at 175 points, that means he's 215
When
with
you put
force
force push
push,
on there.
which
I'd
is
probably I'd probably put him in C personally.
yeah. I
I
mean, I
think you could make
definitely
a case
think
for B just because it is Jedi Luke.
yeah, he definitely I think is in the if you're taking this character, you're taking force push. I think
Yes.
for how much you're paying for him.
Yep.
I definitely don't think you can take operative Luke like operative Luke without force push. I think is like a D. Um, I'm cool with putting him in a B. I do think he's still better than Shadow Collector Maul for sure.
Yeah, that's fair. I do wish he had a second training slot so you could take both into the fray and tenacity because the lightsaber's still kind of swingy for what
It
you're paying for that
is.
profile.
It is. It totally is. And I actually like with deflect only being ranged attacks, into the fray is like become
Required.
on almost all of these
Yeah.
characters like a requirement. Yeah.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. It has, unfortunately. Except arguably Vader, who can get the surges a different way.
Yeah, and there are like a few characters that are surging natively. Speaking of,
Right.
the next one on our list, Count Dooku, um, who is Surge's block now.
Yeah, Dooku got some massive upgrades. So he surges block.
Mm-hmm.
He got direct trooper, which is the least restrictive version of direct in the game.
Yeah, it's actually like pretty insane. The first time I played against him in this new edition with this new card, my opponent was playing like the Lila list basically, and he was like, "Yeah, Dooku issues an order to Maul." And I was like, "Excuse me?"
Yeah. Yeah, free order. Just happens every turn.
Yeah,
Give it to Maul or Ventress or whoever.
I was like, "What?"
Yeah, he's the only character that can just every turn give a free order to another character.
Yeah,
There's literally no one else that can do that. So yeah, that's a great addition. Of course, if you're playing like a more conventional droid list where you have droids in it, you can give it to your
start
B2s or
chain.
B1s or whoever,
Yeah.
and start your aggressive tactics thing going. He also got more dice on his Force Lightning, which is
Yep.
nice. Six dice with Pierce is pretty legit for
Also,
ranged
just
attack.
like that range attack, I think got a lot better in this world where cover matters a lot less.
Right.
Um, I think like it was good before it got the extra die. I think in this world, and it's just even better now.
Right. I agree. Um, yeah. I think Duke is great now.
Yeah, he's also only 165 points before force push.
He does get kind of expensive when you kind of give him all the things that you want to put on him
Yes.
because you probably want. I mean, if you're running like all the force users, then you're not going to put aggressive tactics on him because your hand's not going to be just all Dooku cards. But if you're running him in like a more conventional he's your only force user kind of list, or maybe you're just running him alongside Ventress, then you probably want aggressive tactics.
Yep.
Which is 15 points. You want force push, that's another 40. You want burst of speed, that's another 10, and then your other force slot can be like choke or something.
Yeah, probably choke or reflexes.
Yeah. So he's going to be like 240, 235 points, somewhere in there, which is a lot.
It is, but
Um,
he is in a faction where like you can take cheap units to kind of counterbalance how expensive he is, I feel like.
you can, although I find myself like generally not wanting to,
No
because
doubt. I
B2s are
mean,
so good now.
that's definitely I think separatists are towing an interesting line with like B1s kind of suck even more than they did before. And B2s are really good. But they're also insanely expensive.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about like 100 points at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah. Um, I think I am willing to put kitted out Dooku in B tier, I think.
Oh, I'd put him in A tier. I think he's a lot better than Jedi Luke and
Really?
Separatist Maul. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. I will cede to you on this. I don't have a lot of
Let-
experience with Dooku, but I think maybe this is I think in a vacuum, yes, I think Dooku is probably better than those two characters, but I think he suffers a lot from the junk that you have to surround him with a lot of the time.
That's fair. I kind of think of it this way. If I'm taking Force users in a Separatist list, I start with Dooku. And
Sure.
then like maybe I add Maul or Ventress, or I guess both. But if you're crazy, but it starts with Dooku, right? I'm not
I'm willing to
personally
see that Dooku is the top of the separatist force user hierarchy.
okay. So maybe A minus, B plus, if we gotta do like nuance here.
Yeah, I would definitely put him at the low end of A, I think.
Okay, that's fair. We can, I mean, there's a left to right scale here too. As we add other force users to these tiers, we can, move him off to the right, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. I also, if we decide we need another category halfway through this, I can do
That's fair.
that. Okay, so next up on the list is we have Operative Vader.
Can we just talk about both Vaders at the same time? Because I think they're probably both in roughly the same spot.
Ooh, I'm not sure about that.
Okay, well, let's talk about them back to back.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Okay, so Operative Vader is now 155. Um, I don't think he's had any real retcons to his unit card here.
Not since his
Not
big,
since the big one.
to the 21 change, but yeah.
Uh,
Uh, yeah, I think he's great.
I think he's great too. I definitely think this is a unit that at 155, paying the extra 40 for force push is he's a good enough unit that you need it, particularly with implacable and being able to like fire it off twice a turn.
Yeah, I mean, Vader's always been a blender,
Yeah,
and whether or not Vader returns value in a given game historically has been like, can he get to where he needs to be and then force units to also be there for him to murder?
yeah.
And now the way that new objectives work and stuff, the answer to that question is basically always yes. Um, so yeah, I'd definitely put him in A,
Yeah,
if not S.
I would put Operative Vader in A, I think. And I also just want to call out here that Darkness Descends is an absolutely busted card in this new
It's super good. Yeah.
infiltrating your most powerful unit and then just having them walk forward twice is like the last thing that happens on turn one is
Yeah.
just absolutely frightening. Um yeah, I definitely think that this Vader's I guess let's put Operative Vader in A, and if we feel like we need to bump him up after talking about Commander, we can.
Okay. Let's put him to the left of Dooku because it's definitely better than Dooku.
I'm not sure I can There we go. Okay.
There you go. Yep.
Um, sweet.
Let's talk about Commander Vader while we're on the Vader topic.
Yes. So Commander Vader is an extra 15 points. Brings an extra health. He's still got, I think his unit card's basically the same. For me, I think the big difference here is that with Infiltrate, these guys are actually like very close in speed to one another. Like slow Darth Vader is actually like pretty fast with the Infiltrate.
Well, hang on. I think there's an important nuance there, though.
Sure.
I think if you're talking about speed relative to like when they can first contact with the enemy, so to speak, I think it's pretty close. The issue with Commander Vader is that the situations where a unit can like double withdraw to leave him stranded are significantly more than Operative Vader, particularly after you use burst of speed.
Yes, I agree with that assessment.
Uh,
I definitely think that is a downside to Commander Vader.
I think that's the biggest downside
It's
relative to
definitely the
Operative.
biggest downside. I think the Infinite Courage plus Compel is absolutely gigantic, though.
Those are both huge. Yeah.
I cannot even imagine running an Imperial army without Compel, and having it just baked into Vader is just really good.
Yeah. I think you got to take Krennic or Commander Vader, I think. I mean, Krennic is super cheap now and he has Exemplar and
You can always
everything.
take
So,
DTF.
yeah, that's true too. Yeah, DTF is
Um,
not terrible.
yeah. I mean, I think the other two options are definitely better, but
Right.
um, yeah, I think for me, I think Commander Vader obviously is like a little bit less combat capable than Operative Vader, but I think the fact that he's also fulfilling like this sort of like support role while doing all the other stuff just kind of turns him up to 11. For me, he definitely is an S tier unit, I think, for me.
Okay. I would have put him in the same tier as Operative Vader because I think the speed difference is, a big enough deal to kind of offset those other things. But um, if you want to put him S and leave Operative Vader in A, I'm not gonna fight you out
Yeah,
on it.
I definitely think that just like with the I have had this come up like multiple times in a lot of my games now, is that the suppressing units off points actually is like a thing you can do in this new version.
Yep.
And Commander Vader's just like, no, this never happens to me.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Hugely relevant.
That's also, yeah, I don't know. It's just so good. I think both Vaders you pretty much have to take force push.
Yes. Agree.
Uh, so get out your wallets, your points
Yep.
wallets.
Hmm.
Okay, let's talk about force users that are maybe a little bit less good. Starting with Seventh Sister. Do you want to talk about the Inquisitors as a package deal, or do you want
Yeah.
to?
Let's talk about him as a package deal.
Okay. Um, man, how the mighty have fallen.
I mean, previously they were like force push on a stick. Now, if they're force push on a stick, they're like 150
They're
points.
150. Well, she's 150 and he's 145.
Yeah.
These can't be. I think the first place we need to start is they do not pass uh the force the giving these things force push doesn't bankrupt your army test. And
Relative to their cost and usefulness. Yeah.
yeah, which means that you kind of have to fall back on for 110 points is seventh sister or fifth brother bringing enough to the table on their own. Their melee pool leaves something to be desired, as does the range pool. Their command cards are pretty kind of do nothing and lackluster. Inquisitorious training is like,
It's a lot less good when all you're doing is stopping the opposing force powers without being able to do it yourself.
Well, not only that, but the battlefield's also significantly more spread out. So
Yeah.
the chance to hit with it means that you basically have to fire your Inquisitor at their Jedi like a missile.
Yep.
Um, and I don't know.
And
Um,
maybe they just get whacked if that
yeah, and
happens.
maybe they just die. You know, Seventh Sister only having 5 health as opposed to the like standard 6 is an even bigger deal now than it was 6 months ago.
Yep.
These guys do not have deflect,
Right. That's also a big difference.
which is one of the reasons that the rest of these force users are actually like kind of hard to kill.
Yep.
I believe does block require a dodge token?
It does.
Yeah, they don't have a great ways to get dodge tokens.
Sister does via the not teamwork
Sure, sure. I
card,
mean, I'm
but
I'm not sure that qualifies as a good way to get dodge
that's fair.
tokens.
It's a way. I don't know if it's a good way.
Yeah, I mean, like you definitely can get dodge tokens that way. I don't know if that qualifies as a good one.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think these guys go in D tier. I don't think they're anywhere close to playable.
I wouldn't go that far as anywhere close to playable, but I do think that they belong in D tier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me back that up. I think that for their points cost,
Yeah.
I mean,
There's a
can
very
you play
long
them?
list of things that I would rather. I've played against them. I've not actually used them. There's a very long list of Imperial units for the same cost that I would much rather have.
I mean, yeah, you're basically paying for a melee profile, right?
Yep.
And you can get a much better melee profile by paying a lot less on a dewback.
Right. And you can get much better characters by paying for bounty hunters at or slightly above the same price point.
And just perspective wise, we really, really ragged on Riot Control Squad last week.
Yep.
And that melee pool is better than this one. and,
Yeah.
and cheaper.
Yeah. Very true.
um, so yeah, I don't know. All right, D tier for the Inquisitors. Sorry, guys.
Yep.
Bopping over to I guess we probably should have done Commander Luke at the same time we did Operative Luke.
That's okay. Yeah.
These I feel like these characters are Commander Luke
They're
is
different
enough
enough.
of a reboot that this is probably worth talking about.
Yeah.
Commander Luke is now 120 points. And his card has been completely reworked.
Yeah, his lightsaber was changed from 6 black to 3 red, 2 black.
Which feels a lot worse. I don't know if you've played him yet.
Well, on average, it's a slight downgrade. It makes the pool more reliable. One of the problems of the previous 6 die pool was that sometimes you would just whiff.
Yeah.
Um, but it does also make the ceiling lower.
It feels
It's
like
kind
it's
of
always 3 now.
it's just always 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which isn't great.
Not for a force user.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got block instead of deflect, which, as we just talked about, is significantly worse now.
Yes.
Although, in his defense, he does have much better access to dodge tokens than the Inquisitors do.
He does, but the thing is that if you're playing him in a rebel list, that means you've got other heroes. And frankly, if you've got other heroes, you want to be playing their command cards, not his.
Yeah.
I think is the big thing.
Yeah, because all his command cards that give out dodge tokens, that's like kind of all they do.
Yeah, it's
Which
like,
used
oh,
to be great and is now like, that's just not going to cut it for what I need on this turn.
yes, absolutely. His blaster is more interesting at
The blaster's better. Yeah.
1 red, 3 black with sharpshooter 1. The long shot on it is, I sort of wish this thing was just natively range 3.
That would help. Yeah.
Getting Luke aim tokens is like,
Difficult.
it's not just difficult, it's like a real pain in the butt.
Yeah, you basically would have to like use a rebel officer with exemplar and then take the aim with the officer
and then Luke still's got to be like range 2 of the officer.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know.
It's a lot of setup to
I
get.
definitely I've considered taking offensive push on him, but that seems like waste. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, I wish there was a force power or something that was like, here, have a free aim token.
Yeah, he's got Inspire too now,
He
which is
does.
thematic and neat. I don't know how like useful it is.
It's I think it's like one of those things.
It's not
That's just,
nothing.
this is fine. Um,
He
definitely can't put force push on this guy.
no. I think the biggest upgrade really for Commander Luke is that he now has a command slot.
Yes. Which allows him to order Bad Batch, the best rebel unit in the game.
Yes, or take vigilance if you're doing that thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, or take improv or something. I mean, it's a really useful slot.
Yes.
And previously, a big drawback of taking Commander Luke was that you were kind of punting one of those two command slots, and now you don't have to make that sacrifice anymore. So that's good. But yeah, I think the fact that he's, you know, he's a saber user with clearly a better profile than the Inquisitors in terms of his lightsaber, but it's not like that much better, and he doesn't have Master of the Force. So
Yeah, to me, he's like an 120 point Inquisitor that has access to I am a Jedi.
yeah, which is a great card.
Which is particularly when you're only playing 120 points for the character that is firing it off, as opposed to the like 200 point monster that normally has to give up their attacks in order to um, do that. I feel like giving up a 100 point unit to sandbag your opponent's two best units is a lot better than what that card used to be.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. I mean, you use that on an Anakin Vader or something. That's massive.
it's huge, gigantic.
Yeah.
But I think that also speaks to Commander Luke's kind of not great outside of that play.
Yeah. I'd say like C plus, B minus.
Yeah, I'm in the C boat with you. I think
He's better than Shadow Collective Maul. So if we're
yes,
doing nuance here, I'd move him to the left of Shadow Collective Maul there.
sure.
Yeah. All right. Ahsoka.
Yeah. Ahsoka clocking in at 145 without force push. Also hasn't gotten any updates here.
Yeah, the fact that she does not have Master of the Force. I mean, I've played her now with the new edition, and A, I really missed it, and B, I also didn't feel like it was worth the investment on her. Um, I think she suffers from, frankly, the same problem as like the Inquisitors and Luke, while not being as cheap.
Yeah, I definitely think she's got like some more tricks in the bag, if you will. Her Guardian 2-pip, I think, is a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, that card is still very good.
Because I think, and I might be talking out my butt here, but I'm pretty sure she can use deflect during it now, based on how Guardian works. I was looking that up the other day. I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Okay. I mean,
Uh,
it's mostly great for the dodge tokens, I think, but the Guardian thing could be interesting too, especially if she gets deflect.
I'm like 80% sure.
Okay.
Because I was looking up how it interacted with Kenobi, and I realized during that interaction that it actually worked during her 2-pip as well.
Okay.
Um, Anywho, because I'm pretty sure the clause for it is now under deflect as opposed to Surasu.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then it would work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anywho, I don't think that makes her like a ton better,
Yeah.
but it is like a trick that's in her bag. Like she can pull a mini Kenobi. I think that card is also significantly less good than it used to be because you're so spread out. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Range one is real short.
range one is really short for sure. Uh, how are you feeling with her? You putting her in C tier along with other Rebel heroes?
Yeah, I think I'd put her between Maul and Luke,
Yeah, I think so too.
personally.
Okay. Um, man, somehow all the Republic Jedi ended up last. I wonder where they're gonna go. The last separatist we have on this list is Asajj Ventress, clogging in 130 points. She down 20. No super changes here. Um, I don't know. I feel like 5 health as opposed to 6 is a big deal here. Again, in a format that's significantly more lethal.
It is, although it helps that, as we just talked about with Lila's list, that droids can take cheap medics.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you're taking Asajj, like you have to take some medics.
Yeah. And notably with the new points level, it's much more feasible to run her alongside Dooku and not have the rest of your army be just totally empty.
Yeah, I do think she's a little bit worse in that most separatist lists are not able to like successfully reverse sort anymore. It or rather takes a lot more work to
Yeah.
reverse sort. So having like full order control and triggering her independent is significantly tougher.
It is. It's also kind of less necessary since deflect is just always on now.
Totally.
Um,
But with her having like 0 health,
yeah.
that dodge token is just so
It's still helpful for canceling hits.
yeah.
But yeah, I think you just straight up give her an order now.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely can't take force push here, I don't think.
No.
She does have one recover card, but I don't think it's enough to warrant bopping her up to 170 out of the box.
Yeah, I agree. I think you put Saber Throw, which by the way is better on her now because of the cover changes.
Yeah,
And
for
she
sure.
does have Relentless, which you almost never used previously. I think you put Saber Throw and Burst on her, and you just use her like a missile.
Mm-hmm. I
Um,
agree. She actually has a profile. Unlike the Inquisitors, I think her melee profile is probably good enough to warrant that justification.
yeah, and you can give her Jedi Hunter with her 1 pip.
Yeah.
So, and of course she has Makashi, which also makes a big difference against other Force users.
Yeah, just one shot some Yodas. It's happened.
Yeah, that's not like an unreasonable expectation with on the turn that you play your 1 pip.
Yeah.
The chance that you're forcing 8 saves in that situation is pretty high. And if you're, 8 saves Pierce 1 against a Force user, that's, it depends on whether they're Surgeon or not. If they're not, that's going to be like 4 to 5 damage, probably,
Oh, yeah.
in 1 hit, which is a lot. So, and, red dice being what they are, the chance of just like one-shotting a Yoda is non-zero. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'd probably put her B to the
I
left.
agree. I was gonna say I think this is the best force user that doesn't get to take force push.
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree.
but better than Maul?
I'd say better than Maul.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Um, moving on to Yoda, Grand Master of the Republic. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, you're the Yoda master. What do you think?
man, I think previously Yoda was definitely like an S tier unit. I think the change to guidance basically doesn't. Um, I think it's sort of irrelevant. I think the fact that he's 180 points still before taking force
It's a
push
lot.
is
It's a lot.
particularly in contrast to like um he is he the most expensive force user without force push? I think he might be.
Like the most expensive base cost Force
Yes.
user.
I think he
Yes.
might be, and I think that that's insane with Vader and Anakin specifically, those 2 units having insane mobility as opposed to him. It just I don't know.
Yeah.
Um Yoda's command card, Yoda's 1 pip and 3 pip are definitely worse. Um his 2 pip is still really good. And it will always be for sure. And you can definitely catch some opponents with it. I think I'm willing to put Yoda in the A tier, I think. But I think you got to take force push, you got to take burst of speed. You still have to load him out, and I think at that point he's like close to 250. And he's
Yeah.
very expensive.
He feels like the same conversation as Dooku, where like, yes, it's a good unit, but in order to kit him out, like you need to kit him out, you're paying a lot of points for it.
Yeah, I definitely feel like he's like in the 10 points too expensive for me right now bucket, but I still think he's still good, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd probably put him between Dooku and Vader in that A tier.
Yeah, I think he's definitely not as good as Operative Vader for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Moving over to Obi-Wan Kenobi. So not a ton of changes here, other than he's now 150 points. And Suresu is like a weird push your luck sort of like gambling situation.
Yeah. You can reroll the entire pool,
Yeah.
which I think is you kind of have to treat it like, you know, improvised orders. The best use of that card is to throw back a token you don't want. I think the
Yes.
best use of Suresu is to get a mulligan on a save that you completely biff.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I rolled 2 blanks. I'll re-roll that.
Right.
Like it can't get any worse, right?
Yeah, it's not going to be a situation where you're like you rolling 4 dice and you're like, oh, I rolled 2 blocks. Let's see if I can get 3.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean it's interesting. It's definitely less useful in raw terms than it used to be, in that it used to let you break the high velocity dodge token interaction, and it doesn't let you do that anymore, which I think is good. That always felt like a loophole to me. Um, but it definitely makes him less effective. The fact that having Guardian also makes it so he can't benefit from backup.
Before we go farther, I'm pretty sure we looked it up the other day, and it still does break the high velocity
It
interaction.
still does break the high velocity
I I,
interaction.
I, I think so. I would again, I'd have to go look that up, but I
Okay.
feel like that got challenged, and I'd have to clarify it. I haven't played Kenobi like at all since the new edition came out, so it hasn't been really like on my. But I do think that we came to the conclusion that Kenobi still allows you to pierce immunity high velocity shots. Um,
But I think he can't use deflect if that's happening.
I think that refers to only the defender cannot use
Right.
defect. I think.
I feel like we should sort this out when we're ranking him, but we don't really have time to do that while we're recording this
Yeah,
live.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think it matters for
Okay, that's
for
fair.
whatever it's worth. Um, just because Guardian being range 1 is like,
It's a lot harder to use.
yeah, you can't ball up with clones like you used to.
Mm-mm.
Um, I think he's B tier. I'd put him in the like separatist mall massage bucket, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe less good than them, but still in that bucket.
yeah, that sounds fair. I mean, he's still a Force user with Master of the Force. He still has pretty good command cards. The yeah,
Yeah, like I think he's probably the worst of those 4, but I don't think he's as bad as like Commander Luke or Ahsoka.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to Emperor Palpatine. Oh, you've played him more than I have.
Yes, and I had played him with the new edition. In particular, I ran him with Operative Vader, which was super fun. It's as fun as you would think it is. It's
Yeah,
actually more fun than that.
yeah.
But so yeah, there he has a lot of things going for him in the new edition. Um, he never really took force push anyway, because him being at range 1 of things, before he's on like 1 health because he's already used and now you will die is
Yeah,
pretty unusual. Uh, so I think he's one of the rare force users. I think he's the only force user on his list where it's like doesn't need force push, doesn't have to pay for it to be effective.
sure.
So that works in his favor. Since everything is area control now, that's a situation where and now you'll die is great. So that's obviously works in his favor. The cover changes make that shot more effective since you're not just shaving 2 off the top anymore. So that's great. Given your anger is much better than it used to be. Pull the strength is still great.
I mean, Entire Legion is like one of the best turn 1 cards. Like,
Yeah, just full order control on your deployment turn.
yeah.
Yeah, so all of his cards are great. I will say the fact that he is speed 1 is
Without a deployment keyword.
without any deployment keywords and like no way to give him, Empire doesn't have a unit with scouting party or anything. He's got literally no way to get on the table except to just use his cane and walk.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
not to rewind the conversation too much, but I have been exclusively taking Yoda with Rex
for
because
that same reason.
because
Yeah.
he's so slow. These I
Yeah.
feel like if I think if you both of these units should be speed 2 now. I would make the argument, but
Or they need some kind of deployment keyword that
yeah,
allows you to get them further up on the table on turn one. Like, I don't know if I'd go so far as to make them speed 2, but give them like reinforcements or infiltrate or
they're just like 200-point units that are speed 1 that don't natively have charge or relentless,
yeah.
which
So
is
that's a huge drawback in the current game. I think the other things kind of offset those a little bit. I'd probably put him in like B tier.
okay.
I think I'd put him probably between Luke and Obi-Wan.
Really that low, huh? I was
Um,
expecting you to put him in A tier. I'm gonna be honest, like a low A.
the speed one is really bad.
That's fair. That's fair. Totally fair.
I mean, obviously he can burst on the turn. Usually you want to save that for Now You Will Die. And that's usually like the last thing that he does.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
So it's this awkward tension where, and especially since pull the strings is an action, you know,
Right.
you're taking a speed one move and then doing pull the strings. And then he's like nowhere close to where he needs to be.
Yeah. You
So,
you kind of have to start giving up pull the strings at that point in order to get him to places that he needs to be.
right. And then he just kind of becomes like a Now You Will Die bot. And
Sure.
granted, that card can just single handedly win you the game sometimes. Um, but I'm not sure that it's, at that point you're paying close to 200 points for like a one shot nuke, basically. And maybe that's
Better
worth
hope it
it.
goes off.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's kind of what I've found when I'm playing Palpatine is like, if he has a good and now you will die, you win. If he does not have a good and now you will die, you lose.
sure.
That's basically how it goes. And I think that kind of swinginess, I find it harder to put him higher than B
That's fair.
for that
He
reason.
definitely has some limitations for sure.
Yeah, if you could start him where he needed to be, even if he was still speed one, but he had like infiltrate or something like that,
Mhm.
I think that would be massive for his value. But
Don't worry, that's going to be Senator Palpatine, and he's going to be a Republican.
yeah, right. All right, Anakin.
Anakin Skywalker. I'm not sure there's much to say here other than he's
Yeah, we don't really need to talk
5
about him.
points.
Put him above Commander Vader and S tier there. I don't. We don't need to. We've already talked about Anakin enough on this show.
I do just
Nobody
want
should
to
be
point out.
surprised by this ranking.
I just want to point out that he is cheaper than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 other Force users in the game that are at least as expensive or more expensive than Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, weird. I don't know. I think he could make the case for being the best unit in the game, period, not just the best force user in the game.
Oh, definitely. I'm not sure that's particularly close.
Well, I think for cost, I think you could probably put clone commandos in that conversation. And the fact that you can take more than one, you know.
For cost, yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's hard.
Definitely as like a single unit, he is the best unit in the game.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but my clone commandos don't attack 3 times in one turn. God.
Sure. Yeah, but you do have 3 of them that roughly don't quite add up to the cost of, are a little more expensive than Anakin. But
12 Pierce 3 at range 4 is pretty hard to give up. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I mean.
uh,
So
yeah, so there it is. This formed a perfect pyramid triangle thing here.
yeah, that's interesting. We definitely didn't plan that, but
No.
that's a nice curve there.
Here it is. The tier list of Legion Force units. This is obviously true, all true. This is exactly what it is. It can
Yep,
never ever change.
100% definitive, indisputable, peer
Our
reviewed.
yeah, our word is law. This is
Yeah,
exactly true.
yeah. No, please let us know if you disagree in the comments. I'm sure there's more than one Force user on here that we've ranked that you're like, no, they're great. What are you talking about?
And I'm sure a couple of them will maybe shift, you know, B to somewhere. I'm confident about our S and D tier rankings.
Yeah,
I think the stuff from A to C,
it's a little
depending
more,
on the stuff around it, could shift around. But
yeah, a little more fungible.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a fun Force user ranking. Any final thoughts?
Um, I started painting orcs this weekend, and I'm I have not had the hobby itch like this in a long time. So
Yeah, I wish that I could do that with you guys, but it's too much for me. I've been looking at a lot of Middle Earth strategy battle game miniatures, and we were just talking before the show on how I would paint my orcs if I was playing, but I'm gonna exercise some miniatures purchasing discipline here and not.
we'll see how long it takes me, guys.
Yeah.
Break down this barrier eventually.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, I was painting lava flows on my mortar orcs today. It was
They look pretty good.
yeah, it came out better than I expected, to be honest. So you know, I think Bad Batch is going to take a back seat for a little bit. I did
Uh,
start painting them, but they're kind of boring, to be honest. I will say, and I want to. I forgot how many like nooks and crannies and stuff are on the GW miniatures. It actually makes them a lot easier to paint.
I think that depends on how you look at it. They definitely have less flat surfaces. So
Yeah,
if you're just using like quick painting techniques, um, they're definitely they definitely can be easier.
yeah.
Uh,
As someone who like leans into like dry brushing and stuff
yeah,
like that, it makes the the effects that I like to use look a lot better in I don't know.
yeah. As someone that played Dark Angels for 40K,
Mm,
basically what I found is just the Space Marines have a lot of flat surfaces, so that doesn't really hold true with them. But
sure.
also B, like there's just a lot of stuff on those
Yes.
miniatures, and all of that stuff is different colors.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, like I think like I've got some Deathwing Terminators that like each model probably took me like multiple hours to paint, just because of how many things are on those dudes. Like it's you know in a way that doesn't apply to like uh really Lord of the Rings. I think is in the same category as Star Wars here, where it kind of starts with the visual medium, the movie,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
and then it gets transferred from there, and that's like yeah, that's something that a person has to wear, right?
Sure, sure. Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. Some of the Space Marine outfits are like really.
yeah, they're designed first and foremost as works of art,
Yeah.
and then they start there. They don't start as like a thing that somebody at some point had to wear. So you've got Space Marines with like candles on their shoulders, and um,
What is this? Are you kobolds?
yeah,
What's going
like
on?
a billion like crucifix necklaces and like things hanging off their elbows, and like it's a lot of things. They look awesome, but it's a lot of things to paint. So maybe the Lord of the Rings models that doesn't apply because they did start on
There's definitely not as much stuff as the Space Marines and stuff. Yeah, no.
right. Yeah, and looking at your orc model, I can see how that's the case, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's practical. That's at some point that obviously Lord of the Rings originated with the books, but that visual originated with a movie because the Middle Earth strategy battle game is explicitly based off of the movies.
I guess
Um,
I guess what I was
so
trying to say there was like I think the Lord of the Rings and the GW models generally like they're like, oh, this is a cape. We're gonna make it so that your shades and stuff flow really well.
yeah,
And oh, we're doing like chainmail or armor, and we're gonna make it so that like your dry brushing actually like picks this up. I, I don't know if that's intentional. I assume at this point in
It
GW's
is, yeah.
career, it's like they're like, oh, we're gonna like allow people to use certain painting techniques on certain parts of the miniature, you know. And I just it was very refreshing to go from like painting clones to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, that's fair. Man, now you're making me want to paint some orcs.
told you guys we're breaking down this wall. I can't wait to pop open the Witch King in a few days here. And
Yeah, Nazgul are so cool. And they'd be so easy to paint too. Again, because those capes, I would paint them with a dry brush, and I would do like a green underlighting,
yeah,
which would be super ridiculously easy to do. Uh, Dang it, maybe if I like just get some Nazgul and paint them.
there you go.
Just stop there.
You can definitely buy a box with only like one or two in them. Like you can,
Yeah.
that's the thing. That's the
Yeah.
thing. This is how we get there, guys. All right.
All right. Before this conversation makes me any more tempted to do things I shouldn't, we are the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle.
And I am Anakin, tempting everyone, everywhere, all the time.
Isn't Anakin most tempted himself?
I'm just saying.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.